Go ahead and share my PowerPoint. All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. My name is Amber Lowry. I'm the program director for CyberUp. I'm going to kind of walk us briefly through our agenda. We're just going to talk about who is CyberUp, just in case you're not familiar with us. What is NCSAM? The rest of the October upcoming events, and then I'll introduce our guest speaker and he'll take it from there. So briefly, CyberUp is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to cultivate the cybersecurity talent pipeline. We do that through training adults now with our apprenticeship program, and then inspiring the youth for tomorrow with our Power Up Cyber Games. For those of you who may not be familiar, October is the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and all of our events, our webinar series are brought to you by Centene. They are our presenting sponsor, so thank you, Centene, for making this possible. So National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, or NCSAM, is observed every October, was created as a collaborative effort between government and industry to ensure every American has the resources they need to stay safer and more secure online. We're excited to host a full month of cyber activities. For those of you who may have missed some of our previous webinars, or this is actually what's coming up, you can visit it on wecyberup.org/Hacktober. Today's series is Securing Internet-Connected Devices in Healthcare. On the 24th, if you're into video games and you want to play video games for a good cause all day, you can join us for a video game tournament. It's just our CyberUp's annual fundraiser to help support our mission. October 28th is our last webinar series, Future of Connected Devices. Guest speaker Gary Chan, Zahid Awar, and then CyberUp. So just in case you missed some of our previous recordings, you can watch it at wecyberup.org/Hacktober. I posted our Hacktober kickoff event with Perry Yee. He's the Director of Information Technologies at St. Louis Cardinals. The one on the 14th was Securing Devices at Home and at Work. That was with guest speaker Jason Killam from the U.S. Air Force, 42nd Cyber Operations. All right. Now who we're really here to see, Mr. Brian Gant. So Brian Gant was born and raised in St. Louis. Mr. Gant began his educational studies at Maryville University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in information systems while also playing collegiate basketball for the institution. Mr. Gant completed his graduate studies at Fontbonne University, earning a master's in management, and Capella University, earning a master's in human services. He's currently enrolled in Maryville U's Higher Education Leadership doctoral program with an expected April 2021 graduation. Mr. Gant began his professional career in law enforcement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation as an intelligence analyst working cyber, domestic terrorism, and public corruption. He continued his service for the next 5 years with the FBI until he joined the ranks of the U.S. Secret Service as a special agent working domestic and international assignments to include protection of former President Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, as well as critical systems protection and electronics/cyber crimes. Mr. Gant accepted an appointment to become a full-time cybersecurity instructor at Simon School of Business, Maryville University. And I'm sure your most accomplishment is that Mr. Gant has a 15-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter who also reside with him in St. Louis, Missouri. Let me stop sharing this. I'll hand the reins over to you. Do you have the sharing capability, or do you want me to make you a presenter?
Looks like I am able to share.
Great.
Let's see. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I need to be a presenter. Yeah, it's asking me for the presentation mode, I guess. Nope, it won't let me, but I can go ahead and I don't know if it'll let you do presentation mode or not for me. Okay. Still nothing. Can you hear me, Amber?
So maybe I'll take it. I'll be the presenter and then I'll hand it back to you, see if maybe that helps.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to reset WebEx. See. Okay. Down at the bottom, do you see your share button?
Yep. Clicking screen. It's giving me my 3 screens.
I know sometimes the WebEx can just be a little cranky sometimes.
Since we can't display your shared content, make sure that you've allowed permission to share content.
Well, okay.
Let me check one system. If not, I'll just go with it. Lock me in assign privileges. Nope, won't let me do it.
Well,
Okay. Well, I'll just go with it. I wanted the presentation to be more interactive anyway. So I'll just kind of go with what's on the slides and see if I can provide you all with some information regarding just cybersecurity perspectives in general, and then specifically from just my point of view, detailing kind of what Amber was discussing as far as my background. So again, I started in federal government early on with the FBI as intelligence analyst. I had an information systems degree from Maryville, so that's how I kind of got into cyber activities. Um, while with the FBI, I did a host of things regarding cybercrime, special events, intelligence threat assessment. So I got into the assessment game of looking at vulnerabilities and threats, both domestically and internationally. Um, I decided that I wanted to do more field work. Spent about 5 years or so with the FBI and decided I wanted to become a special agent. So applied to 3 or 4 different positions, and I was lucky enough to get on with the United States Secret Service as a electronic crime special agent. Again, working cyber crimes, network intrusions, things of that nature. I worked a program called Critical Systems Protection, which kind of plays into the whole healthcare information systems world. This particular program that I worked as an agent actually looked at all networked facilities that the president or the vice president or even a visiting head of state would go to. So as an example, if someone came to Bush Stadium, literally, I would go in a week ahead of time and I would look at all the network systems, HVAC, access control, security cameras, anything that was networked, and we would find ways to control that while the president or vice president was there, as well as any kind of remote mitigation, not to allow someone to come in and, let's say, control the HVAC system and maybe introduce poisonous gas into some areas where the president or the vice president may have been. So I did that RTL for 16 years, loved every minute of it. And then I decided to go back into private industry, and that's where I got into the healthcare spectrum with BJC. With BJC, I was a IT security threat specialist working in the information technology security department. So I worked in conjunction with security operations analysts, vulnerability management, penetration testers, all of our IT security engineers. My job was to basically know a little bit about all of those different positions and kind of be proactive and forecast how to best protect BJC from any kind of cyber attack. And that included working a lot with, I was the liaison. Basically, I worked a lot with the federal government, contacts that I had made over the years, and then also within private industry, developing contacts with other healthcare organizations. There's the organization out there called HISAC, which is an information security analyst exchange kind of fusion center that a lot of private organizations are a part of. And they actually get together and they exchange information. Private industry is much like the federal government or the military model in regards to fusion centers and things of that nature. We found within the federal government that the best way to share information is to get everybody in one room and to bounce ideas off of each other. The other person can kind of know what the other person is doing and maybe forecast and stop a lot of those threats. So that model has transferred over to private industry, whether it be healthcare, financial, what have you. That model holds true. So I had some information here, and I was just discussing how basically the future is technology driven, right? So healthcare, cybersecurity is a growing concern with us all. The last few years have seen hacking and IT security incidents steadily rise, and many healthcare organizations have struggled to defend their network perimeter and keep cyber criminals at bay. So if I were to ask you, what did you think this past year data breaches cost the healthcare industry? What would you say? And it's kind of a rhetorical question, but that if you were to say 1 to 2 million, you would be way off. Becker's Hospital Review stated that $5.6 billion was lost concerning cyber breaches and data breaches to the healthcare industry alone. So some of the newest cyber vulnerabilities are not necessarily an organization's biggest threat, and that may be a common belief. And the reason why is a lot of organizations struggle with a common term called patching. So if Patch Tuesday comes out, which is a Microsoft day in which they release kind of the CVEs and the new vulnerabilities that are out there in the world, and they're basically saying, hey, if you have any of these systems within your network, you need to complete this update and complete this patch. What happens is there's a disconnect between receiving that information and organization actually funneling that to the appropriate team or owner and actually completing that patch. Patch management is a huge issue today. The organizations that typically keep themselves from those big data breaches have very, very good patch management practices. Uh, we also look at information. Verizon's data breach investigations report. It's a well-known report a lot of organizations look at. And it actually found that most breaches are about money, and attackers usually take the easiest route to obtain the information they need. So in that realm, going after older operating systems and things of that nature, things that organizations should have up to par, attackers already know that most organizations don't, and that's kind of what they go after to, introduce malicious, content or malware. So some of the cybersecurity challenges within healthcare, and this can also roll over to other industries. Of course, some of the biggest ones are malware and ransomware, right? Cyber criminals use malware and ransomware to shut down individual devices, servers, or even entire networks. In some cases, a ransom is then, demanded to rectify the encryption. Uh, Something interesting that has come out recently about that is the federal government is actually discussing or maybe introducing the fact that if a company actually pays the ransom, that they'll be held responsible. So I don't know how far that'll go, but it's something that's interesting that's out there. Cloud threats, right? You have two basic ways to store information. You have on-prem data servers, and then you have the cloud. And right now, we probably have a lot of organizations that kind of have a mixed bag of the two. But going to the cloud is where most organizations are going. So an increasing amount of protected health information is stored on the cloud. And without proper encryption, this can be a weak spot, for healthcare organizations. So PHI is just like PII, personal identifiable information. They're the keys to the kingdom. So you want to make sure you're protecting that. Misleading websites, so external websites that the organization may have. Cyber criminals are creating websites, addresses that look very, very familiar to similar sites. I actually had a slide in this deck where I actually had two sites side by side, and I basically asked you the question, which one is fake? And I would get a poll and get answers, and the answer was basically both were fake, but there were very, very subtle changes and why one was why they both were fake. And this particular example was FedEx, and some of it was, the FedEx sign was just off a little bit with color wise. Another one was if you hovered above the URL, the www, it actually, even though it said, FedEx.com, if you hovered over it, it actually led to somebody's personal Gmail account. So little things like that, you can kind of discern whether something is fake or not. And then some people simply just substitute the .com or the .gov for something else, .ru, for Russia or what have you. So all of these little tips can help you out with identifying things like that, with that at work or what have you. Phishing attacks are huge, right? Sending out mass emails from what seems to be a reputable source, and you're looking to gain information. So I'm very wary of phishing emails or emails in general. I don't like to click on a lot of links. I'm the person that is going actually to the website, opening up a whole new browser. So definitely want to be vigilant concerning that. You also have encryption blind spots. So, while encryption is critical for protecting health data, it also is kind of a blind spot where hackers can hide, tools to commit, data breaches and such. And then employee error. Employees can leave healthcare organizations susceptible to attack, through weak passwords, unencrypted devices, and other things. You know, Behavioral analysis is kind of the big thing that's happening within a lot of industries, especially healthcare. You want to gauge or create a baseline of your employees' behavior. Brian comes to work at 9 a.m. Brian logs into these three servers. He conducts a little work. He goes to lunch, et cetera, et cetera. As soon as Brian logs into those servers at 2 a.m., behavioral analysis software bubbles that up to the top to say, hey, something's kind of weird here. This isn't normal. Let's investigate or let's look into this. Is it employee error? Is there some kind of other insider threat, malicious behavior going on? Things of that nature. So that's a big segment of healthcare, and a big challenge the healthcare is facing today. And then probably the biggest challenge of all, medical devices. Your operating room machines, other smaller IoT devices that are connected to your bigger healthcare network. Um, Pacemakers, again, equipment room, all of these things, connect to your network, and they have vulnerabilities, and they introduce ways that you may not be able to um, combat right off the bat. So having a good vulnerability management system, is a must. Actually, going out, methodically, and creating baselines for all of these devices and running scans on these devices to check for those vulnerabilities, and then patching them appropriately, again, will be key. So I just mentioned in here, I had some historical news. I worked on the Snooks, grocery store chain, was one of the data breach cases that I worked on, back when they took 2.4 million credit and debit cards instantly. And it actually was introduced by an information technology employee through a phishing email. So again, no, everybody is susceptible to these kind of attacks. So you have to make sure that you're very vigilant. Fitbit, again, Fitbit was recently in the news, about leaking email addresses and passwords from third-party sites. So here I am, you're trying to be healthy, you got your Fitbit watch on, and all of a sudden, your information is out there. Fitbit did come back and say that information that was linked to them was actually from a previous breach. So there's a little gray area there, but again, you're still susceptible to that. And even people with Apple Watches, I know people with Apple Watches think, the iPhone, if I have an Apple Watch, it's the most secure thing in the world. I will never be hacked. Smartwatches and other wearable devices are basically an extension of your smartphone. So any apps you download, any text messages you get, any ways you access the web, your iPhone and your Apple Watch is going to be susceptible, just like your phone is. Um, Hewlett Packard actually did a study back in 2015 that found critical security issues with all of the smartwatch devices when they did testing. So it actually was a common problem. So these are things that Fitbit and Apple are going to have to work on to become more secure. We have some information also on just some current things in the news right now. I don't know if you were aware about or heard the 6 Russian military officers being charged with a worldwide cyber attack. Cyber is the international deal. We had a display board when I was in private industry within our security operations center, and it literally showed a map of the world. And it literally had, lines going from one country to another, showing how many cyber attacks were happening at that particular moment. And it basically looked like strings everywhere. This is something that I don't think people realize how often it's occurring. And there's a reason why, graduates who come out of college with cybersecurity degrees, or architects or engineers, there's a reason why they're making 6-figure salaries, some right out of college. It's because there is going to be, I believe, by 2023, a million person talent gap for those who have the skills and the jobs that are available. That the gap is going to be that big. So we have to be very, very intentional, and doing things like Cyber Up with apprenticeships, internships, things of this nature, talks like these, webinars, getting people more interested, and getting into these fields, because the jobs are going to be there. It's more about creating the individuals with the skills to actually do these particular jobs. So we talked about all of these challenges, right? So let's again talk about maybe some strategies. Establishing a security culture. Again, ongoing cyber training, education, emphasis that every member of the organization is responsible, right, for patient data or any kind of data that goes from the CISO, the head of the department, all the way down to the intern. Clean desk policies, all of those things, play a part. Protecting mobile devices. So healthcare providers are using devices at work. We have people doing, BYOD, bring your own device, because of the remote working force. So encryption, two-factor authentication, other protective measures are going to be critical, right? So maintaining good computer habits. Again, doing new employee board, new employee orientation. The IT security department or the awareness team or what have you, they should be there. They should be talking about all of these good habits, all of these best practices. That includes maintenance, with your software, taking care of your equipment, things of that nature. All of that should be talked about. Good password policy. The use of firewalls. So anything connected to the internet should have a firewall. So this is where your architecture group really comes into play. You would be surprised at the number of organizations who really don't have a good network map of how their organization is set up, and they know where they have firewalls in place, where they should put them, things of that nature. So identity management of all your critical assets and things of that nature is very key. Antivirus software. Again, antivirus software, good endpoint connection or protection is all key as well. And plan for the unexpected, right? Expect the unexpected. Files should be backed up regularly, for quick and easy access. Your organization should have good disaster recovery, programs, and you should actually test those disaster recoveries out, from here and there every so often. If you get hit with a ransomware event today, do you have the ability to go to your backups and restore your system? Or are you beholden to paying that ransom, which may or may not get you the keys, to unlock, all of your data that they've locked up? So those are just some things to kind of consider. Again, with phishing, I avoid opening links or attachments unless I'm 100% sure they're legitimate. Um, I restrict, sharing of sensitive information in email if I can, and I actually use secondary or burner email addresses. You never give out your work address. Have an email address that you can subscribe to Macy's or things of that nature, where they can send all of the coupons and other data and spam and stuff like that. Try to keep, even though you may have a spam folder, on your Gmail or what have you, try to keep those things separate, just to give yourself more buffer and more security, right? Security is all about, layers of security, because security and data breaches and things that these companies are facing are complex problems. So the only way you can solve complex problems is to have layered approaches to security. And again, we talked about kind of developing a system for backing up data, using strong passwords. I'm a big proponent of Lastpass, which is a password manager, and I can put that in the chat if need be. But LastPass actually gives you the ability to have a master password, one large password, passphrase, and once you enter that, you can go to different websites. You can go to your online banking. You can go to your kid's school website or what have you, and LastPass will store that information and would automatically log you in. It's a great way to keep passwords safe. Do people still put passwords on sticky notes and hide them up underneath their keyboards? Unfortunately, yes, they do. So, bad practices lead to bigger things, data breaches, billions of dollars lost. So, if you try to get the low hanging fruit, then, you create more of a security culture and a security posture. And then education, right? Whether it's people at work or it's people in your household, educate everyone, educate your kids about cyber risks, cyber hygiene, all things cyber. And you'd be surprised when they, get older and they go to college and they get out into industry, they'll take those practices with them to the workplace. And so it'll kind of be reinforced. So Again, any questions you all have, nothing is off limits. We can talk federal government, we can talk private industry, and then obviously, as a professor at Maryville University, teaching cybersecurity courses, we can talk that as well. I teach incident response, mobile forensics, cybersecurity principles, or just a few of the courses that I actually have ongoing right now. So without further ado, I'll give it back to you, Amber, for maybe some questions.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I thought it was extremely interesting. I do have some questions just to get us started. But by all means, everyone who's tuned in, feel free to unmute yourself, ask Mr. Gant whatever you would like. But one of the first questions I had, since we have a lot of healthcare industry professionals on this call, what should they specifically be most concerned about from a security standpoint? Is it mostly phishing emails, would you guess? Is it being hit by ransomware or something else that maybe we're not even thinking of?
Yeah, I think ransomware is actually, I think, kind of tailing off, so to speak. The phishing campaigns are always going to be there. You definitely want to be concerned about those. You definitely want to have some things in place, whether it's through like Microsoft Office 365 or other tools in place that give you a good handle on what you have coming in, and gives you the ability to basically triage any kind of malicious emails and stuff like that that are coming in, to where you can actually give a good look at it. A lot of organizations tend to buy tools. They buy multiple tools, trying to create this great security posture, when actually they're only using like maybe 10% of each tool. So doing an assessment, like a true assessment of what you have in place, and getting the most out of that particular tool that you have in place, I would recommend, as opposed to continually throwing money at a problem and trying to fix it with multiple things. You don't want to be a master of none and a jack of all. So, but yeah, I definitely think phishing is on the rise and will continue to do so, because it's just an easy thing for criminals to do.
Yeah. Are you aware of any websites or opportunities where they can kind of practice of what a phishing email looks like something that quizzes them?
No, not offhand. Typically, your internal kind of cyber awareness department will actually do some internal phishing campaigns for the employees, maybe quarterly or what have you. They won't tell employees, of course, and it's really more of kind of an awareness or an education of kind of some obvious things to kind of look out for. Um, the problem with that is a lot of the phishing campaigns that the companies are doing for their employees, they make it so difficult, to recognize that the email is fake, that you start having other real business emails coming through, and sometimes the ball is dropped on stuff that he or she may think is malicious. So I think I definitely probably give you some information after this call to send out to the participants, of ways they can just kind of get more information about phishing.
Yeah. So what happens? They click on it and then they realize what they did. What should they do next when they did their whoopsies?
Immediately stop what you're doing and try to contact your local IT help desk or first level department to see if they can triage it from that point. I think usually most organizations have systems in place where even when you click that malicious link, it kind of takes it off network, lets you know you did something bad, and immediately contact the IT department. So, but for those who are smaller in nature, who maybe not have that in place, usually if you kind of stop what you're doing, immediately sever the connection, whether it's a browser, exit out of it, et cetera, and then trying to uh, relive that particular instance to see what was done, with like I said, IT professional or what have you to see.
Yeah, makes sense. So do you suggest any security awareness training employees can participate in, or is that basically something that comes 100% from their IT department?
Yeah, usually, from the IT department, there are definitely a wealth of resources out there. Whether you can Google, you can go to ic3.gov, Internet Complaint Center.gov. It's ran by the FBI, and it actually is a site that if you experience any kind of personal cyber loss or what have you, you can enter information in, and the FBI catalogs that. But it not only catalogs it, it does have resources available for you to look at, just to become more aware, kind of scams and things of that nature that are occurring real time. FTC.gov also is another site that allows you to kind of educate yourself outside of your workplace to find information.
Nice. And so for the people who are wearing the Fitbits or whatever IoT kind of health devices, what would you recommend the best thing to do that we can keep those secure and safe? We're not telling everyone our location who we don't want to know.
Yeah, just become more security, vigilant. A lot of times that there may be a price there with convenience. Something as simple as whenever I go to a different website on my phone, a pop-up box saying, "Do you still want to continue to this website?" That kind of pop-up box can be disabled, but it also can be enabled. And it's just another layer of protection that you have. Um, the downloading of third-party apps, making sure that they're coming from trusted sources. There are millions of apps out there, and everything that looks good isn't good. So you want to make sure that it's a reputable app that you're actually downloading onto your phone, things of that nature. So the same security that comes with phones is the same security that comes with computers. Smartphones are nothing more than an extension.
Okay. And so kind of switching gears a little bit, I'm also interested in your FBI experience.
Mhm.
Whatever you could talk about, obviously. What would you say your craziest story that you've experienced at the FBI?
Oh, craziest story. It probably it actually isn't anything probably cyber related, but when I was with the government, I used to have to go to the UN every September. Um, the UN, United Nations in New York City, is where all the heads of or the presidents of other countries come to the United States for meetings and things of this nature. And during this particular time, I actually had to. I was doing the critical systems protection at a particular hotel, and at that hotel, the president of Iran was staying there. And at the time, we were not very friendly with Iran at all. In fact, he couldn't even leave the hotel. He had to have meetings in the hotel because we didn't want him and his security team going about. And the different posts that I had and dealing with his security team, I was worried about truck bombs. I sat on a midnight shift um, with one of his security detail, and he's literally smoking cigarettes in a stairwell, holding a knife. I'm looking at him for about 6 to 7 hours straight on the midnight shift, not wanting to fall asleep, afraid that we might get into a tussle or what have you. So just that kind of being in that kind of environment and not knowing that anything could pop off for 48 hours straight was very, very intense. So.
I would say so. I can only imagine.
Mm.
So I want to make sure and open this up to anyone else who's joined us today. You said you can ask him anything healthcare related, FBI, Maryville University, what he's teaching currently.
Hi, can I ask a question? It's Lisa
Sure.
Franchetti. Hi, it's a great presentation, Brian. So I'm the customer experience manager. I was wondering, do you know of any specific security concerns that might be in place with any of the medical record or the chart applications? I'm wondering how secure are things like MyChart
hmm
and other applications like Helo things that our members may be using or even ourselves may be using. So that's question number one. And question number two would be, are there any security concerns around telemedicine that we should be available, that we should be aware about? Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Definitely, with things like MyChart and Epic and other health databases, there are always considered concerns. But I will say that those concerns for those applications are bubbled up to the top because number one, they're dealing with customers. So anything with customers receives the most attention and has the most protection. Anything externally facing, what have you. You'll always have issues with different websites and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think healthcare is doing a great job in securing those types of applications. And then on the other end, I'm trying to remember. You were asking about was it
Telemedicine.
telemedicine? Yeah. So telemedicine again, the whole remote world that we're living in. Making sure that someone can't remote into a session. We have the advent of Zoom bombing now. Something that we didn't know about 2 years ago is all the rage. So making sure the trust between those two networks is completely secure is also of utmost importance. So again, whether it's using two-factor authentication and things of that nature to secure that link between your office and the actual customer or the client is key and is of the utmost importance.
Thank you.
I have a question. With all the press lately, with Zoom meetings and hot mics, it would appear that many people in the community aren't aware that they're actually on film and on the microphone. What can be done about that? As far as, I don't understand. Like the press really has been hot lately about these two occurrences in the last week, and these are high-profile people.
Right. Yeah. Kate, it's kind of it really comes back to just creating a culture and us shifting to this kind of new norm that we have to deal with. Were Zoom meetings and remote meetings and things like that happening prior to the pandemic? Yes, they were happening. Were they happening on the scale that they're happening now? No, there weren't. So many individuals aren't yet used to, or I won't say that they're not comfortable, but they're just not used to always having that camera possibly be on in your face. And I sometimes, even as a security professional, I fall victim to it as well. I have a little green light here with my webcam, and when that green light is on, it's live, but what if that green light isn't on one day? What if that green light goes off? I have 2 or 3 other things I can look at on my screen to see if I'm sharing my video or if I'm muted or not muted. And I think we as a culture just has to get more used to this new norm that we're dealing with. And some of those news articles that I think you're speaking to, those individuals are just the ones that we know about. I'm sure it's happening all over the place because people are still kind of getting used to this new Zoom, Google Hangout, FaceTime world of conducting business and presentations. So yeah, I think it'll take some time, but I think eventually we'll get there.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Pause to make sure if there's anyone else having questions.
See, I knew something was wrong. No one asked me if I've ever been shot before. So that's usually the first question, but nobody's willing to do it.
Well, now you brought it up. Now we need to know.
Shot at, but never been hit. So that's a good thing.
Okay, good. Typically, whenever we go to schools, the students always ask if aliens are real. So, do you have a statement about that?
I don't believe they are, but I wish they were.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Actually, it's Lisa Franchetti one more time. So you had mentioned about passwords. So I've been employed at Neighborhood for 20 years now, and I will admit that initially, yes, I had a ratty piece of paper that had all my passwords on it that I thought that I would stick in a secret location on my desk that nobody knew about. And then I moved that to something, and I mean, like an Excel spreadsheet,
Right.
or it's in a note on my cell phone or something. And I always struggle with exactly the best way to maintain or to keep my passwords. And I have a million different ones, and some of them change at different intervals, either 30, 60, or 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been a challenge. Is there a gold standard that we at Neighborhood should follow? It's
Mm-hmm.
I'm clearly not a new employee, so I'm not even sure if it's even covered in new employee orientation. But what should we be doing? Like, I see Katie King on the phone. I wonder what you're doing too. It's like, for us old timers, how are we supposed to keep our passwords?
I would really, really look into LastPass if I were you. And if it's something that the management there can download or give you administrative rights to download, it is really one of the gold standards for password management, as far as allowing you to get into, I'm like everybody else, and I'm sure you are, you have 10 different tabs open when you open up Google Chrome, and because you're logged into this or logged into that, and it really helps manage all of that the best way with that master password. And then using passphrases. Passphrases, I think, are the key. It allows you to not be susceptible to password crackers and things of that nature. 6, 7, 8 character passwords, uppercase, special character. Those are being cracked by penetration testers today. We had a very good penetration tester at my last private industry job, and he literally, after doing the penetration test, came to me and showed me in clear text what my password was. So it was not a good feeling. I had to step my game up. So definitely passphrases. Using the letter E and turning it into a 3, or little subtle things like that, just to make your password a little bit more complex. But I definitely would look into LastPass.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone was unmuted, so I was waiting to see if they were going to talk. So are you a part of the Fusion Lab at all at Maryville?
Yeah, well, we have a lab manager, Cyber Fusion Center lab manager, Sean Kilfoy. But yes, definitely, we try to get students we have the ability to give them kind of like a real life security operations center, kind of what it looks like in industry. And so they're in their lab doing vulnerability management. They're working on different actual applications that are used out in the industry. Then we have a separate section that is kind of where they can conduct those presentations, and we have a digital wall board that we can connect up to 9 people can connect to it and present all at once. Because there's always a skill that's needed, a soft skill that's needed with giving presentations. Creating taking a technical conversation and relaying it to a non-technical or business, clientele or audience. So we work on all those things. So the Cyber Fusion Center lab at Maryville, definitely top notch.
And then we're always curious, what made you want to kind of get into this career field? Like, what sparked your interest?
No, I was always into computers, things of that nature. And it just kind of over time, it just kind of evolved. I like the business aspect of dealing with information systems and how it relates to business. So I like more of the strategic kind of intel gathering side of things. I'm by no means a programmer or super technical or anything like that, but I enjoy seeing how a particular process, cyber-wise, can be related to a organization, and everything from creating the frameworks at the ground level to seeing it implemented. I enjoy that particular process.
Nice. And I know you've kind of seen the industry evolve a little bit. Any kind of predictions where you think you might go? Maybe more AI related, more cloud?
Definitely more cloud and AI. I was just looking at some figures the other day of cloud engineers, architects, artificial intelligence, and like the growth rates for all of these particular careers, were 30, 40%, like immediate growth rates. So, cloud is, especially storage, is very, very expensive, but it's to the point now where organizations are leveraging it because it's also expensive to have these huge data centers with servers that you have to cool and you have to protect physically and you have to monitor constantly. So they're seeing the advantages of moving things to the cloud, especially with like data recovery, disaster recovery, things of that nature. Being able to pull down something from the cloud instantly to reimage or what have you, as opposed to trying to go do a physical backup, is just the convenience of it, and with the remote workforce that we have, it's just going to be the thing of the future.
Nice. And then for those either organizations, maybe they have a one-person IT department and they don't really do a backup. They don't have a backup kind of policy. Or maybe for the people on a personal level needing to maybe back up their stuff, what would you recommend? What's the best kind of platform, hard drive, that kind of stuff, for people to back up their stuff?
I would just actually recommend, because each situation is so different. Seeing what situation is best for you. If you have a small business, like you said, maybe one or two, IT individuals, maybe look for a cybersecurity shop that can actually third party kind of help you out, with those, systems, rather than trying to conduct it yourself. And then for, like I said, for personal, finding ways to, have resiliency, 2 and 3, backups of everything. I try to do that myself, and sometimes I'm even lax in that regard. But it's definitely an individual thing. But educating yourself on what may be best for you, I think is a way to go.
Thanks. So I know we are almost at time. I do want to open it up for anyone else who might have a question that popped up while we were talking. So I'll give
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Eli Afonso with Neighborhood as well. I just had a quick question about the, you mentioned Lastpass, and again, there are many products out there, right, that can do the password management for you. Any concerns with somebody hacking the tool and basically getting the keys to the kingdom?
Yeah, definitely concerns with that. But we try to do our due diligence. And as far as vetting, those services that offer kind of that password management, looking at reviewers like Gartner as an example, to see, what their security posture is. And, we particularly, for a lot of organizations that I've talked to, have found that LastPass kind of meets and checks those, boxes as far as, information, security on their end. That's, like you said, that's definitely a concern of a lot of organizations who use these different products and different tools. You not only have to be concerned with what your network is and what you're doing on your particular network. If they have, access to your network, now you got to be concerned with theirs, and you should know what's going on with theirs and what their security posture is and what have you. So And all in all, it all goes back to communication, right? And talking with individuals, at that particular company about how they are set up and how they update and what are their plans for the future? What's their strategic roadmap like? What do you have on your roadmap that will make you more secure as a password management server? 5 years from now, all of those questions need to be kind of discussed and vetted before, like I said before, you just throw money at a problem and expect to have it fixed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Sharing your time. A lot of great info. Thank everyone on this call for attending. I will send out a recording of this session too for those of you who may have missed it or want to rewatch this. So, okay. Hope everyone has a great day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.